Paul, you're a native Californian, and so am I. So give me some history.
Take a look at this door here, these hinges. They're on the door. Kind of reminds you of the movie Gone with the Wind. There's the old bolt. This door was built maybe like in the 1870s. Ulysses S. Grant came up here. It was such a big. Mark Twain writes about this place. This would have been the transfer point. You couldn't get across the river. You'd come up here and you rode the ferry across with your wagon to move your cargo to or from the gold country, whether you're a produce, whatever you had. This was this super highway of the time. And when I come up here and I look at this, I think, how many years, how old are these mounts here? And back at that time, you know, after the Civil War, the politicians of the time would like to tell stories. I'm going to build the infrastructure. And then they would have the taxpayers chip in somewhere, and they'd have donors that became, I guess you would call them lobbyists after a while. They chip in on these things. They get their politicians to push them through. And they did such good work in those days that these things are still standing today. If you take a look at some of the rock formations, you'll find that some of these rock formations that they had built follow the example of the Roman architects and engineers. We're on a fault line here. These buildings are still standing. It's a testament to the engineering skills they had back then. But this project here would have probably guaranteed somebody like Ulysses S. Grant some major fundraisers. The people who made money off of the marketing and transportation of cargoes. And they're still standing. Many wagons, stories have been written about this area. They had hangings here. They had an old jail down the road, made out of steel. I mean, you could probably use it as a solar oven. I hate to be arrested in this town. This town was also known for being a mason town. And it still is today. If you go into some of the buildings, you'll still see the mason designs on the floor. You know, the black and white checks, in case nobody knows what they are. But, you know, continuing on, take a look at the bridge they built to replace this steam-powered cable ferry up the road a little bit.
I can now say we got an Oregon sky as well as a California sky.
This right here was this building here. Because they had a steam plant, they also milled things. Like if you wanted to make grain or flour, something that needed to be crushed, this is where they would take it. So this was not only a steam ferry, it was a steam-powered mill. This is an industrial center. This is automation. This is industrial powers of the old days. We went beyond the steam train, the steamboat. So when this was up and running, there would have been huge wheels in here that would roll around in a circle, and they'd pile in their crushed corns and their wheat and turn it into flour. I'd like to say that this building over here is their office for the days of the steam plant. Being as many things that I would have done. Oh, look. It'll tell you right here, this is for the mill where they make the flour. 1854, this is older than I thought it was. Built around 1854 by David Block. This small house served as a mill office.
Get it right.
Residents over the next century. This is where they milled flour. And he made hydroelectric plant out of it in 1927. Lots of history in California that people don't realize. These stones that they built this out of, they were quarried off of Highway 4 I still can go to the quarry where they did it. I used to hunt there. I'd hide up there and wait for the deer to come around the hill so I could shoot at them. Turn them into beef jerky and salami.
You awful man. Killing Bambi.
And here's some graffiti from the old days. Right here.
The one with the electric bulb, yeah. Nice view of the river.
But these stones were probably all chiseled by hand back in the day. They didn't, I guess it was cheaper than brick. You go to the quarry and get the Chinese laborers to come down here and do all this work for next to nothing. If you travel around up here, you can even see some corrals that were built by the Chinese laborers. Amazing here that these things are still standing. Here's the bridge that Mark Twain and Ulysses S. Grant.
You're about to say something? Yeah.
And so eventually, to make it faster on commerce, they built this bridge that was suitable for wagons to roll back and forth with cargoes that would have been needed around here.
Well, Paul, where are we and what's the significance of this location again?
This is a bridge that was dedicated by our good friend, the President of the United States. The historical landmark right here.
But are we in the California gold country?
Yes, this river right up here, as you can see, would be a place where people would placer mine. Placer meaning pleasure mining, where you sit in the water, it's hot, you clean your pay dirt, and you're relaxing. It's kind of like a picnic.
All this time I thought it was a geological term and it means pleasure.
Yeah, it's the comfortable way of mining. And if you were to travel around, when the river goes down, gold being one of the heaviest rocks in the river, you look in the crevices of these rocks you see along here, and you get a little scoop you make from a car antenna or something. You dig out the dirt in there, you put it in your bottle, take it home, and clean it with your gold pan. And there's still a lot of gold. The majority of the gold you find in here now is what you call flour gold. It takes an awful lot of it to make any money, but if you're up here placer mining, well, then you're enjoying the day. You're in the cool river water. This river is dammed now, but if you look at it, you can see where it used to come way up high, where it's still kind of swept by the current.
Now you said earlier, I believe, that this is gold country, this is a stagecoach trail,
yes,
and that this was a transportation hub of some significance in California.
Yes, if you were taking the stagecoach and you're going to go into the valley, this would have been the shortcut. You'd come up here to this narrow spot and you'd ride across this bridge uninhibited, not like the ferry where you had to wait for it to go back and forth and you had to pay laborers all the time to keep the fires going and operate the cable system. So this is something that built the economy helped to build the economy of California.
The route is significant for the gold fields or all of California? Was this a major north?
Mostly, I would say a lot of gold miners came up here and they harvested gold out of here, but your hide business, your beef business, your produce business would have all came across this bridge. Land speculators, being on the stagecoach. There's other monuments up and down the river, other cities that are missing now that testify to it. But this one here, why the reason it's so significant, because this was built strictly for the purpose of transporting cargo and making more money for the people who made donations to people like Ulysses S. Grant's campaign. Yes, they had politics in the old days too.
Apparently California was an important enough state.
Yeah. California is one of the third largest economy systems in the world.
But back then it was too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now this bridge here, when I was a kid, the kids used to jump off of it into the river. And you can still see some of the holes where they had patched them up to stop kids from jumping in the water.
It's not much of a river down there right here.
Well, last time the biggest El Nino that came through here would have been like, I guess, 93. The water came way up above all this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And we haven't had an El Nino like that in quite a while. But if you look at these timbers here and you think these timbers, how old they are. And if you know much about construction, there's no creosote. This is just a naturally strong wood. Testimony to what wood can do. Then you keep going across here, and this will put you on the road that'll take you up over the hill into Nevada.
Oh, so it's a real route.
Yeah, if you're going to Nevada.
So which pass does it go over?
This will hit Highway 4.
Right.
Eventually.
Sonora, or is that the other one? It's one of the major passes, right?
No, Sonora, I believe, is a little bit further north.
Yeah, Sonora.
North by,
so it's the next pass.
West.
The wagons literally went over the crest of the Sierras, is that right?
Yeah. If you follow these routes out, you'll even find historic markers of the old stagecoach trails. They had to bypass them, for the new modern highways that were probably built in the 1950s with the aid of another politician named Dwight Eisenhower. He was also interested in infrastructure that when he was in Germany, he seen how efficient Germany was, and he decided, well, let's learn from the war. Let's build up our roads and highways in the United States. Eisenhower, to me, was a good president. Some people may not think so, but as far as building the economy and strength of our country, Eisenhower was. Infrastructure, transportation. People graffiti these things here. I guess it makes it feel like they're timeless.
Yeah.
Reminds me of, there's a picture in Sailors Union Hall in San Francisco that was graffitied by a guy named Crazy Eddie. His real name was Eddie Ferreira. And he was one of our characters. And anybody who's been to sea knows that going to sea in the Merchant Marine is a system of people that could not exist in any other trade.
Amen.
I was one for...
I might have, became a senior member of the union if I got a DUI, robbed a bank, and ratted out everyone on the ship, right?
Yeah. Yeah, those are the people that we used to call industrial infantry. Now, if you're getting down here a little bit further, we're starting to cross over a spot where the river goes down about 14 feet. And my kids used to dive off of this. My grandchildren dived off of it. Of course, I made an issue of them diving off of it.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you hit this water on a really hot, sunny day, you can go into shock. It's that cold. This is snow runoff.
Yeah.
And if you have some beverages you want to keep cold, just stick them in a burlap bag and put them in the water. They'll stay cold. The watermelon will stay cold in this water. So good. But when we used to get 110 up here, and the 110 would last 2 weeks, you can bet that water was very comfortable. The sun made up the difference. Some of this planking here, this is all new stuff. You can see it's a different type of wood, different sound.
This is the sort of stuff you'd make like homes out of from like colonial times, that the timber that never...
This here is something you can find at Home Depot.
Right,
Colonial times, but
right.
This stuff.
Why houses from 1720 still are up in eastern Virginia because of timber like that.
Yeah, and if you take a look at some of it, it has a pegs in it, or dowel pins.
Oh, okay.
That's how long ago it was. Dowel pins were used because they would allow the bridge to flex a little bit. And any structure needs to flex. Well, this is the other side of the savior of California, this bridge. And all this was under the water, right here, back in the day. before they built that dam, this was a wild river, of course. The salmon would come up here. And,
It looks deep and refreshing right there.
yeah, it goes down about 14 feet. I know I've jumped in there.
Yeah, I could. It's pretty clear too. I noticed. I saw something like pretty deep.
Well, 30 years ago, in the end of August, beginning of September, you come up here and it'd be just like you're up on the Columbia. You can watch the salmon go up here.
Yeah, the salmon.
The sardines in a can. They'd be bruised up from the travel up here.
Yeah, they're already dying when they make that last trip.
So they don't say nothing about it when you harvest them. But anyway, that concludes the story about the bridge and the history of the steam plant. That was a mill, a cable ferry, and then replaced by this, which was more faster. You can bring wagons across, like in the military, they would say stem to stern. Make it a little bit more graphic, just apply that to an animal. But we don't use military language here anymore anyway.
This is the Stanislaus River, right?
Yep.
In Stanislaus County, California, right?
Yes, and when you follow it down, you run to a place called Three Rivers. There's an Indian reservation still in existence there, where your Sacramento, your Stanislaus, and San Joaquin River all come together. Good place to go fishing.